Little hidden gem there from the music collection. I kind of there was a page in my mixer that I hadn't gone to in a while. Thought I'd fire that one up. Like, what is this? That was kind of cool, kind of moody. Hi, I'm Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. We're going to talk about a few things tonight. I've got a couple of questions queued up, but basically the theme of tonight's show is anything goes. Right? We're just gonna, as the title says, shoot the shit. Couldn't print it, but I can say it. Viewer Q&A, mailbag, whatever you want to call it. If you guys have some questions, I've got some queued up as well that I thought I would just kind of throw out there as opposed to me kind of giving you my analysis on a couple of topics and getting your response to it. I'm going to ask you questions, and then we'll be in the comments and we'll see what you guys think. And what some of your responses are. But if you have any questions for me, now is the time to ask them as well as we get ever closer day by day to training camp. So let's get this started. This is Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
All right, you guys, welcome back. Always good to see you. Just get some business out of the way. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't get spammed. You don't get notified unless you hit that bell button, but it does really, really help the channel. I am a full-time content creator, and so this is how I make a living. All the other ways that you can more tangibly support the channel are listed and linked down below in the description. If you haven't checked out the new merch store yet, please do. I'm going to be adding some cool new things to that. We'll do some training camp specific stuff. That'll be kind of fun as well. And then the new Patreon, which here's what I would suggest on the Patreon. Get over there now. If you want to sign up for one of the tiers, cool. You would be able to watch and listen to anything that I do. I post it over there. Although the last show, I haven't quite uploaded it to Patreon. I apologize for that. I'll do that as soon as we're done here tonight. But you can watch everything ad-free and listen to everything ad-free. But the biggest advantage to being on Patreon or a paid member of the YouTube channel here, but even more so on Patreon, is you'll get exclusive content that's only produced for you. There's a couple of things up over there right now, some all 22 stuff that, if I put it on YouTube, I'd be demonetized or potentially blocked, where Bryce Coots and I dig into the coaching side of Bryce. You probably know him as a co-host of the Hawks Own Rundown podcast, but he's also an offensive coordinator and a quarterback guru, has his own quarterback academy. We break down a bunch of Sam Darnold film stuff, so you can check that out. But here's what I would suggest. If you want to go over there now and take a look at the tiers, cool. But if you want to wait until training camp starts to sign up for a tier and start paying for it, totally understandable. Because once we get into training camp, there will be a lot more of that exclusive content. There's only so much that I can do this time of year. But once I'm at training camp and I'm up close, sidelines, practice stuff, we're limited in how much we can show, but there will be more exclusive content at that time. So if it makes more sense for you to sign up then, cool. Also, if you follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever, you probably saw some of my little cryptic tweets, but I'm about to knock the rust off and start writing again. This is something that's in my background. I'm a journalism major. I've written for a bunch of football websites in the past, and to the point that I kind of got burned out doing it. And then when this channel started to grow, this is just so much easier in some senses, but just more fun and interactive. So I stopped writing, but I'm going to start it up again. Can't promise how often it's going to be. My thought is that, just kind of whenever it strikes me, or I think I can add something different or something new to the content I'm already doing on the channel here. But I will have a Substack up and running soon. And what I'll do is I'll just make it free until training camp, just anything I write between now and then. And then once we get to training camp, it'll be very, very, very inexpensive. But again, and occasionally I get feedback like, why does it have to be behind a paywall? This is how I make a living. So I'll try to make it as reasonable as possible. But most importantly, I'll try to make it so that the value makes sense, so that you're getting what you pay for, and actually that I'm exceeding your expectations of what you're going to pay for it. And like I said, it'll be really, really inexpensive. Just something to keep an eye out for. So yeah, let's get right into this because I see we already have some questions, and I haven't done this in a while. Been looking forward to chatting with you guys. Haven't done as many live streams lately. My apologies, my bad on that. All right, let's just go right here. Kick Up says, "I want to be the first question." Well, here you go. What's your favorite summer activity? I'll go with a little bit of recency bias here. Because usually, it's easy to say going to baseball games, right? But since we've been here in West Virginia, my fiance and I have been really assertive about exploring the area, to the point that we both kind of have acknowledged that maybe we should have been more active in some of our other stops. But this is a completely new part of the country for both of us, and it's so different than anything I'm used to, just in the topography, the layout, the everything about it, the foliage. Did I say that right? Foliage, the flora, the fauna. It's been so much fun, and we have almost every single time she has a work break. She's a nurse. She works overnight shifts, and she'll work like 6 out of 7 days, and then she'll have like 5 or 6 days off. Sometimes she'll just have 2 or 3 days off. And every time she has time off, we're just like, where are we going to go? And we've explored more of West Virginia in less than 2 full months than we did in the whole time we were in Arizona, and even than we did together in the Pacific Northwest. Now, some of that is just human nature, right? You're just like, it's your home, so you don't treat it as a tourist would, right? I got called out like 10 years ago. This woman I was dating was like, have you been here? Have you been here? Have you been here? No. What are you talking about? You live here and you haven't seen these things? No, because I'm not a tourist, right? Like, I'm just here. I take it for granted. And so we went on a little tour and checked a bunch of those boxes off back at that time. Like, I had never been to Jimi Hendrix's grave, even though I lived literally blocks away from it for a couple of years in Renton. So things like that. But we have been out hiking, checking out trails, waterfalls. There's so many rivers running through this area and bridges. And then her family lives in Ohio and Indiana. So we've made those trips like 3 or 4 times. And in the process, we always like to set up the Maps app to avoid toll roads. And in this part of the country, it's weird. In Seattle, the only time you have to worry about tolls is if you go through the tunnel or you go over a bridge. Here, they'll have highways that are tolled. It's weird. It's really bizarre. But then again, I understand, because some of these areas, they're kind of rural, and it's just they're in a lot of revenue streams, right? They got to make their money somehow. But in doing so, a lot of back roads, 1-lane highways, go through a lot of small towns, where you're just like driving for an hour or 2 at a time at 65 miles an hour. And then all of a sudden you have to come to a stop because you just run into this tiny little town that has one stoplight. Super, super cute. And just really, really enjoying that part of it. So I would say just getting out, being active, exploring would probably be it. Look at that. I didn't even see Dogzilla. Haven't heard any banjo music. But no, we've seen some really, really cool, just the lay of the land, right? It's such a different, everything in the Pacific Northwest is, there's obviously some leafy trees that dump their leaves every fall, and you do get some of that change over the seasons, and then they blossom and grow back in the spring. But you also have, it's mixed in with a lot of evergreen stuff. Not the case here. Everything's kind of leafy, and so many rolling hills and densely packed forests. It's been an eye opener. It's been really cool. I can't wait to see some other parts of the country now that I haven't seen before. So all good. And just to be specific, the real Jack, Sean asks, we are just outside of Charleston, which is a capital city. So she actually works at a hospital in South Charleston. And then we're about 10 minutes away in a little town called St. Albans, which is in and of itself is an old coal mining town. Like that was a big thing here, obviously for decades. And so as you can imagine, it's it's a fairly depressed area. It's very, you can tell just driving through, it's very industrial, and that was its foundation and its basis. And so the actual town of St. Albans, a lot of closed up shops and closed down buildings, and you have to go to Charleston to get some of the big box stores and things like that. But it's only 15 minutes away, so it's kind of cool, which, just makes it really quiet. Driving around's really easy, not a lot of traffic to deal with. And I will say this about this part of the country, have experienced nothing but really, really nice people, which I don't care what your beliefs are. I don't care what side of the aisle you lean towards, any of that stuff. Like, if you're a nice person, I can dig that. I can get with that. And that's all I care about at the end of the day. So really, really nice people. The one thing that I've never experienced before that I am trying to get used to is I've never had to deal with humidity, ever. Lived in the Chicago area when I was like 13 years old, but only for 7 or 8 months. And it was like, we moved there in the fall, we left in the spring. I never got to experience a summer there. So going out on a day when it's 95 degrees, but also 50% humidity, it's a different ball game. It's a different feeling. It's the only place I've ever lived where I felt like I had to take multiple showers a day. Like, I go work out, and then I always shower at the gym. And then by the time I get back to my car and turn the AC on, like, I feel like I have to take a shower again. So, yeah. Let's see what we got here. Munglees, love your content. Jalen Milroe, preseason MVP. I appreciate the super chat, the super thanks. Thank you. I agree. I have been saying this for a while. I even said it this morning. I was on with Bill Alvstad on the Seahawks Playbook podcast because he needed a sub co-host because Keith Myers is on vacation. Good friends of mine, known those guys for a long time. Love the work they do. If you've never checked out their show, go check it out. Maybe start with the episode I did this morning. Always a good discussion with Bill. And I made this point, and I've been making it for a while on the channel, so you've probably heard it as well. I think this might be the most fun preseason we've seen in a long time. And I have a comp. So I have felt for quite some time, especially since he became a Seahawk, that there's a pretty clear comp for me for Sam Darnold. He's Matt Hasselbeck. I truly believe that. Like, their skill sets are similar. I mean, Sam's got a better arm, but I say that, and it's not, the gap isn't that wide. I always felt like Matt never got the credit that he deserved for his arm strength and his arm talent. And maybe it was because he had a little bit of a longer windup, and his throwing motion was a little bit longer, whereas Sam Darnold kind of has that more modern throwing motion, where I think, now I'd have to go watch video again, but I think Matt was a little bit more over the top. Maybe not that much. But Sam's more of as Bryce Coots loves to say, a rotational thrower. I mean, he just snaps it off, right? It's a quick, assertive, almost a violent delivery. Like, when he's decisive and he gets rid of the ball, he snaps it off. Matt was more, his delivery was a little smoother, but maybe that's why it was kind of deceptive. Like, the ball got there quick. I remember a throw he made his first year in Seattle, because they were still wearing like the old, what are now known as the throwbacks. They switched, I think it was his second year in town when they switched to that new uniform style, which I think we all agree was the worst uniform style of their history. Like the one that was kind of carried them through the Holmgren years. But there was a throw he made. They were on the road playing the Raiders, and he drops back to pass, and he's got a little bit of pressure, and he's trying to throw an out to the right. It's about a 7 or 8 yard out. Routine NFL throw, if you get a chance to put your foot in the ground, right, and go through your mechanics, and you have good protection. He didn't, and he had a guy in his face, and so he's kind of leaning back and had to kind of throw it while he's leaning back, and threw just an absolute dart, a seed to the far hash, from the far hash to throw it out. And I remember in that moment just thinking, damn, I didn't know he had that in him. But the reason I like the comp is I think Matt was always like the 11th to the 18th best quarterback in the league at any given time. And that is, in my opinion, like I know today that's considered mid, which is some sort of criticism. It's a bad thing. I'll never be able to wrap my head around how someone can think that being a good starting quarterback in the NFL is ever a bad thing. I just immediately dismiss your opinion if you think that's true. And we've heard that a lot in this area because we lived through the Hasselbeck career, 10 years of him kind of being in that range. And so we've had those debates. There was even time during Russ's career where there were those debates, although they were a little bit higher. I remember the biggest debate during Russ's career was that, is he a top 5 quarterback? Is he elite? And he was just kind of outside of that for most of his prime anyway. So it's different. I mean, he clearly was a cut above, right? I'm not saying he and Hasselbeck were in the same bucket. But certainly Geno, there were a lot of those same conversations surrounding him, right? That's a good thing. If you don't have one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, then every fan base has this discussion, right? Dolphins fans have that discussion about Tua. Lions fans have it about Goff. 49er fans and other fans around the league have it about Brock Purdy. Cardinal fans and other fans around the league have it about Kyler Murray, right? Guys like that you're not going to get one of those top 5, but you have a good quarterback. I just, the either or, the all or nothing kind of attitude is something that, if you know me and you watch me for a while, you know that irritates me. But I think that's kind of where Sam is, right? He's never going to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. But I think he can be very, very good. I think he showed that last year. And I think what you're going to get from him now moving forward is very similar to what we got from Matt. I think the statistics on a year-to-year basis are going to be pretty similar and pretty consistent. I think he's going to be 30 plus touchdowns a year. I think he's going to be 10-ish interceptions too. But the thing that I loved about Matt is he'd have a bad game or a bad stretch. He'd have a couple of bad games in a row where maybe he throws 5 picks in 2 games. Always liked how he bounced back from it. And there are enough explosives and enough touchdown passes in there to offset the interceptions to make them not as damaging. And I think we saw that last year from Sam. If you watch the breakdown that I did with Bryce on all his touchdown passes, or all his interceptions actually is when we talked about this. He had a game about halfway through the season where his worst game of the year against Jacksonville Jaguars, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions against not an elite defense, right? And it was near the midpoint of the season. And so the narrative was pretty predictable and understandable where it was like, okay, Cinderella lost her slipper. It's the shine is worn off. The honeymoon period's over. The league has figured out Sam Darnold now, this new iteration of Sam Darnold. And so, now it's going to kind of go downhill. It was fun while it lasted, right? But then he bounced back right after that and didn't throw a pick. I'm going off the top of my head. It was like he didn't throw a pick for 5 games and he only threw 3 the rest of the year. And included, there was a good stretch there where he threw 9 touchdowns in 4 or 5 games. He had a 5 touchdown game. I think that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a bad game. You're going to get a clunker from time to time, or he'll throw a bad pick in an important game. And there will be overreaction, but there shouldn't be. But that's a long-winded way to say that when we get around to quarterback play, the other comp in a broad picture sense is during a lot of Matt Hasselbeck's career, who was his backup? It was Seneca Wallace. What was Seneca Wallace's game? He was an elite runner, really quick, really dynamic running the football, and a talented thrower, but not always that consistent. He was a smaller quarterback, didn't have the strongest arm in the world, but every preseason he would look fantastic. And he would make these really head-turning and really awe-inspiring plays with his feet that got a lot of people thinking, well, he could be something. And anytime Matt would have a bad game, you would hear the people clamoring for Seneca Wallace. But when Seneca Wallace got his chance to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, we saw what he was, right? Good in small doses and in small sample sizes, but not good enough to keep a job long-term. Don't get me wrong. I think Jalen Milroe's ceiling is much higher than that. I think his ceiling, if you tap into it properly and you develop him right and you get the best that he can be, at some point, he's a franchise quarterback and a very, very dangerous one. So his ceiling's much higher than Seneca Wallace. But I do find it interesting that I think there are some similarities in these two scenarios. So this is something, by the way, John, I don't know if you know this because I haven't heard back from you and you weren't in the live stream that day, but this shirt is yours. All right. Okay, still got the tag on it. You won this shirt. You were the name that I drew out of the hat. If you could email me, the email is in the description, and that way I can get your mailing address and get it out to you. So I'm glad you won. You know, everybody that put their names in were good, loyal viewers, but it's hard to be more loyal of a viewer than you are, especially on these live streams. We honestly, as much as we've gone out and explored, we haven't gone out to eat that often. But there is one place that I'll tell you, and now I need to find, hang on, find the actual name because I want to give it. It's called, there's actually a restaurant here. There it is. It's in Charleston. It's kind of hidden away. It's up on the hill overlooking the town. It's in a little strip mall. I've been to so many restaurants in my life that are in strip malls that don't look at anything from the front. Then you walk in, you're like, holy crap. There's a place in South Center near Seattle called Grazie. It's right next to it's sandwiched between Men's Warehouse and Car Toys in a little L-shaped strip mall just south of South Center. Some of you might know it. And from the outside, you're like, it's a strip mall restaurant. You walk in and you feel like you're in a high-end Italian restaurant. And the one time I went there, the server even had an Italian accent. Don't know if it was legit or not, but it felt like it was. There's a place called the 1010 Bridge restaurant in Charleston. And their chef, late last year, this is recent, actually won a James Beard Award. That's, for a little place in Charleston, West Virginia, that's crazy. That's such an exclusive award. And the main dish that he submitted that helped him win the award was it was a sous vide steak. And if any of you are familiar with the technique of sous vide, it's basically a vacuum packed piece of meat that you cook very, very slowly over a long period of time, sometimes over 24 hours in a water bath. And you might think, wait a minute, if it's in a water bath, it's either going to be for 24 hours, either going to be overcooked, cooking that long, or if it's not at a high enough temperature, it's going to be in the danger zone, right? It's going to produce bacteria. It's going to be unsafe to eat. Not when it's sealed like that. If it's handled properly before you seal it, and then you seal it, it's good to go. And what was amazing about it, because obviously it was one of the dishes we tried, is when it wasn't like a high-end piece of steak to begin with. He didn't take a filet and sous vide it, because that kind of defeats the purpose. Like the sous vide process is supposed to make a steak more tender. Filet's already tender. So he took a shoulder cut, like a culotte, which is usually what decent places will use like for their steak sandwich because it costs less. But it can be a little tougher. It can have little lines of fat or gristle running through it. But you sous vide it and put like an amazing, it was like a blackberry, what's the word I'm looking for? Demi-glaze over the top of it, like a wine reduction. Unbelievable. So to think that we were going to find a James Beard award-winning restaurant here, pretty crazy. But that was one of the only times, the only other two times we've gone out to eat here. It's been 3 or 4 times. We tried a local Mexican place. It was terrible. Worst Mexican food I ever had. Worst service, worst everything. But we ate at Texas Roadhouse, which they don't have in the Pacific Northwest. So I'd never eaten at one. And my fiance was like, what? Are you crazy? Because she's from the Midwest, from Texas, Indiana. So they're all over here. It's where her sons prefer to eat. So Father's Day, she took me to Texas Roadhouse, had a chicken fried steak. It was pretty dynamite. That was great. And then we've eaten at like Buffalo Wild Wings. There isn't a lot around here. Do I like Arizona or West Virginia more? They're so different. That's hard to... Right now in the moment, it's easy for me to say West Virginia because, like I said, really pretty. The climate's so different here, but in a fun way. we get thunderstorms every couple of days. And that's fun. When you live in the Pacific Northwest, like thunderstorms are such a huge event because they never happen. They're pretty common here. And it's pretty cool. Like in the middle of a heat wave, like we had last week, you'll wake up in the morning, go outside, and you'll realize that it rained during the night. It just makes everything just fresh and smell good. But I guess if I removed myself from the immediacy of it and stripped away the recency bias, like I love the Arizona area. I have a lot of good friends down there. I just love how accessible everything is. Like it's so easy to get to everything. You can take the freeway system that circles it, or everything's on a grid. You can take regular back roads. Every restaurant you would ever want to go to, either chain wise, or there's some really good like local places and chain places, or not chain places, like independent places. Obviously entertainment, all those things. I like the way we're doing it, you know, go to Arizona for a couple months here and there. I don't think I get to ever live there full time, just because it would get to me after a while, like how the lack of scenery, the lack of, trees and forests and green and water and all of that. So I guess if I had to pick one or the other to live in, it would probably be Arizona, because I think I'd rather deal with the 2 or 3 months where it's like extreme heat versus having to deal with really extreme winters. So that's my answer. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing. Congrats on getting press credentials, up to do a meetup after camp one day. Okay, 2 different things there. First of all, thank you. Appreciate it. I love that you changed the picture. Now I can see who you are. That's a gorgeous picture of you and your loved one. So just to clarify, if any of you haven't heard, I am getting credentialed right now. The only thing that's been approved is for the first few days of camp, because I'm not in the area, so I don't have a chance to go meet with anyone in the media relations department there or anything else. But I'm really confident. I'm really optimistic that the answer will be yes, and I'll get credentialed for the full season. But right now, because I'm not in the area, the plan is we're going to drive back. We're leaving on the 16th. It'll take us 4 days to get there. And then camp opens the 23rd. And so they're going to give me credentials and access for the first few days, and then we'll sit down and meet. And then hopefully moving forward, it'll be full time. Just to show you how optimistic I am and hopeful I am, I'm driving and I'm bringing Butch with me. If I wasn't that optimistic and I thought there was a chance that it would just be the 3 or 4 days, I would probably fly and rent a car. So thank you for that. Fingers crossed. And really the reason I'm in a position to do this is because of you guys. And I just want to give you a little tidbit I thank you for bringing this up, because I did want to start off with this, and then I got off on a tangent, as someone has so aptly named it. I just wanted to give a big thank you. It was one of the reasons I wanted to do a live tonight, because I don't think I've expressed this recently. Really, really thank all of you for watching, listening, engaging, donating, commenting, sharing, supporting. The growth of the channel has been extremely gratifying. I went back the other day and I listened to my first ever episode of the Dan Cave podcast that I produced on July 28th, I think it was, 2018, which was a week later than this year is, but it was the first day of Seahawks training camp. And pretty crazy to think how far it's come since then. And it's because of you guys. Just as an example. So in the year 2024, I did 1 million total views on this YouTube channel. That just blows my mind. Like it really, really does. To think that 1 million people, well, not 1 million people, but that people, however many it is, hit play on my YouTube videos 1 million freaking times in 2024. 2025, so far, I'm at almost 700,000 views. I'm on pace for 1.4 million. That's, I'm not real great at math, but I think that's a 40% increase. And it might end up being more than that, because if we get into training camp and the regular season and I'm credentialed, I would expect that might bring some more eyeballs. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. For the month of June, this is a great example too of how much you guys have helped do for the channel, because, you've heard me talk about it. You hear other creators talk about it. Once mini camp's over, like there's not a lot to talk about. And some people don't even really care about minicamp. Plus, school's out. It's summertime. People are traveling. There's holidays. Like views typically go down. You see a lot of creators and reporters take time off, just check out for 2-3 weeks at a time. Not me, and in part because can't afford to. Like this has been a little bit of an eye-opening experience. It's been a little more stressful and anxiety-inducing than I expected. Thankfully, I've been able to be creative enough to get by, and I have a really supportive partner, although I haven't had to actually cash in on that, pun intended. But it's there if I need it. But last June, I did 52,300 views for the entire month. This year, I'm already at 100,000 views with 2.5 days left in the month. That's crazy to me. I'm gonna do twice as many views as I did last year in June, and that's all because of you guys. So thank you. That's my long-winded way of saying thank you, and I appreciate it. Down to do a meetup. That's an awesome idea. I love that idea. Jason Churchill used to do that from Baseball Things. If you're Mariner fans and you don't listen to his podcast, you really should. It's worth the money. Actually, Jason was an inspiration for me when it came time to do my first podcast in 2018, because I thought, once I realized what podcasts were and kind of where they were going, I thought, wait a minute, I can do that. I have a computer, I have a microphone, and I have the experience with my journalism broadcast background. And so I'd been writing for NFL websites and Seahawks websites for 5 or 6 years, but I wanted to podcast. And at the time I remember thinking, well, I don't know if anyone's going to listen to this ever, but I'm going to do it anyway for me, because I like analyzing this stuff and I like talking about it. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of people in my life I could just do that with on a personal level. My best friend, who I can talk for hours and hours and hours about anything sports related. And back in the day, you probably saw him on the show quite a bit, Eric Briggs, one of my best friends. We would catch up every once in a while over the phone, but he's in Arizona, I'm in Seattle, he's got a family, I've got stuff going on. I didn't work with a lot of people at that time that I could just go to work and the water cooler discussions and talk sports. They just weren't into it. So I thought, well, I'm going to do it for me, and if anyone ever listens, cool. And I remember being so excited the first time an episode got 100 downloads, right? But what really gave me the confidence to move forward with a podcast, because my biggest question was, can I do it by myself? Or do I have to have a co-host or a guest every week or every episode? And I just thought that would be logistically more challenging to work that around having a career and everything else. But Jason basically flies solo all the time on his podcast, and he'll do an hour, 90-minute episodes 2-3 times a week. Really, really smart, really well researched. He knows a lot about baseball. And so that was kind of sort of the impetus for me to get started. But he would do those. And so I like that idea a lot. And there's a perfect venue for it when we get into training camp time, because Dino's is right across the street. You guys may have heard of Dino's. It's a great little sports bar right across the street from the VMAC. Well, across the street. The street is the freeway, I-90. And it's long been known as a place that, John Schneider likes to hang out occasionally. And it was the infamous site of the first, kind of when the news broke that Ryan Grubb was hired last year, if you remember, because he, McDonald, Schneider, and then someone else, maybe I think it was Scott Huff, were all there having beers, and somebody snuck a picture, and that's kind of how the news broke. But I also know the owner of Dino's really well. I actually worked for him once. Well, he was my beer rep when I was a GM at a couple of busy bars in Seattle, and then later on he decided to buy a wine bar, and convert it into a full liquor bar, whiskey bar in Maple Valley. And he actually hired me to run it for him for a year. And then he bought Dino's. Now he has 5 places. So I like to give myself a little bit of credit for that, although he probably wouldn't. But it'd be a really cool, fun place to do after camp one day. So we'll definitely get that together. We'll do that in some way, shape, or form, somehow. Let's see. Yeah, Holy Sasquatch says East Coast is full of tolls. It's weird. Although I wonder, I drove through a couple of little toll places, and it's well, how are they ever going to find me? I'm still my registration or my license plate's going to come up with a Washington address. I don't know. Maybe when I get back to Washington in a couple weeks, I'll have a bill waiting for me for like $1.50. Did you cruise through Huntington? Thoughts from Mr. Apaclib? Cruise through because it's on the way. Just drove by last night. Had to take my fiance to Cincinnati. That's one of the downsides of this area is while they do have an international airport in Charleston, it's served by American Airlines, but not Alaskan. That's her preference, my preference too for flying. And she's a VIP member and everything with them. And so had to drive her to Cincinnati to get, it's just way more expensive to fly in and out of Charleston. So just drove through it this morning. And every time we drive to Ohio or Indiana, haven't stopped there yet. And I need to, because every time I drive through it, I go, dang it. And I remember that I still have my Xfinity Comcast Wi-Fi router. And now I'm starting to get those nasty messages, like they're going to turn me over to collections or whatever, because I haven't returned the equipment. Well, Xfinity's not the big carrier out here. And so the only office that I could return it to for thousands of miles is in Huntington, which is only a half an hour away. And I keep forgetting every time I drive through there. So, and I won't be able to do it. Well, maybe I will when I go pick her up in 4 days. I was going to say because her flight gets in really early, but by the time we come back through on the way back, I might be able to drop it off. But whatever. I'm also going back to Seattle in a couple of weeks, so I could just do it there. So I don't know. But the one cool thing about Huntington is it's right next to Point Pleasant. And have any of you ever heard of Point Pleasant, West Virginia? And do you know what the legend and the story is there? You've heard of the movie The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere. Have you ever heard of the Mothman legend? It was this creature a long time ago that sort of like Bigfoot, where there are all these reports of sightings of this winged creature with these big red eyes that was out near the power plant there. There's an old nuclear power plant that's been converted to traditional coal power now on the river there, on the Ohio River. Or no, it's the Ohio River. We actually were listening to this podcast about a month ago as we were driving through that area. It was kind of weird. But they have a museum there for it and everything. It's a big deal. So that was kind of cool. I haven't checked that museum out, but maybe we will if we have time here in the next few weeks. The thing that's crazy about this part of the country, and I really like it, and the timing's unfortunate. Like in the summer, there just isn't as much going on. But I could imagine if we were here in the fall, like when you live in Seattle, you don't understand what it's like to be able to reach other markets easily. Everything's far away. But here it's like I can get to so many cities within a 4-hour drive. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, which do you want to win a trivia contest someday? Just sitting around the bar drinking with people. Ask them which city is a larger metropolitan area, Seattle or Columbus. It's Columbus. It blew me away. Seattle still to this day is the 18th biggest TV market in the country, which is so weird because they were the 18th market back when I was in school, hoping to work in Seattle in TV coming out of college 30 years ago. Columbus is 14th. That just blew me away. But like Louisville, Lexington, like college football, can you imagine? Like all the games I could go see? It's really unfortunate that the Mariners' schedule didn't work out a little bit better, because if they were playing in Pittsburgh or in Cincinnati, for example, while I was here, it'd be an easy drive and I could go see them play on the road. I was thinking about, and I still might, July 9th, Creed is playing in Lexington. And I've never seen Creed before, and I've always been a huge fan. And I actually had tickets like second row center to see him at the Tacoma Dome way back when, but it was literally when everything was imploding and Scott Stapp was having all of his issues and he ended up getting kicked out of the band, and they canceled that show and they never rescheduled it. So that's how close I came to seeing Creed, in basically the front row. And now they're touring again. And I was planning on seeing him in August when I'm back in Seattle. They're playing at White River. I might even do the combo and see him at White River one night and then drive down to Ridgefield, see him the next night. But Lexington's 2.5 hours away. So I might just shoot over and grab a late ticket to see him at Rupp Arena. How cool would that be? Pops PD7J. Have I ever had wanking nachos? It's a Midwestern style. Love them as my game day food. No, but I'm open to anything that has the word nachos in it. So please do tell me what they are. Hey, here's a non-football question. What can we do to make ownership sell the Mariners without threat of relocation? It's so hard to watch anymore. Nothing. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any level of public pressure that you could put on John Stanton, Chris Larson, and the rest of that massive ownership group that would convince them to walk away from an investment that continues to grow by millions every single year. For what they bought that franchise for and what it would sell for today, they would all cash out big time. So those of us who aren't multimillionaires might think, gosh, that makes sense. Walk away from it. Take your money, cash out, and not have people yell at you in the streets. I don't think they care. They don't walk the streets. They don't live that kind of life. They don't care. It's just an investment to them. It's unfortunate. It's sad. And I think we have to shift our focus to hoping for something other than that, because that's never going to happen. And what I mean by that is this. I've maintained this for quite some time. You can win in Seattle with John Stanton and Chris Larson being the primary owners, with their insistence that they stick to a conservative budget, even though they're one of the most profitable teams in Major League Baseball. And if all they did is take their profit every year and put it back into payroll, they could compete with any team in the league every single year. That's not going to happen. But you can win big in the meantime. You just have to have someone really, really smart, that sort of Billy Beanish, that can recognize underappreciated talent, that can find that diamond in the rough, that can find that undervalued free agent that teams might view as having a one or two flaws that gives them pause before handing out a contract to them. That's Moneyball. That's what the A's did. But you can do it on an elevated level, because certainly the Mariners have higher revenue, higher payroll relative to what the A's were able to do back during when this was happening. And I'm not sure Jerry DiPoto's that guy, or Justin Hollander, whoever makes the big decisions. It's hard to tell. I do think they're tremendous farm directors and amazing at identifying precisely the type of player that they like in the draft and then developing that player appropriately. They have 9 of the top 100 prospects in baseball right now, and a couple guys outside the top 100 that'll probably move into it in the next few months. It's their hit rate on developing minor league talent so far is unbelievable. And granted, we haven't seen these guys make the leap to the majors, and that's always a dicey one. It's probably the hardest transition in pro sports to make, other than maybe playing quarterback, going from college to the pros. But just hitting a baseball, certainly. If you can find someone that can, okay, here's my example. This last offseason, pretty widely reported, seems to have been accurate, that they had about $15 million to spend to fill out the holes on the roster. They ended up spending it on bringing back Jorge Polanco, who they were pretty confident was recovered from his knee injury, or would be, and Miles Mastrobuoni. Actually, he was a minor league deal. I think that doesn't really count. And then Donovan Solano. It's like, okay, those moves kind of made sense at the time. Like a healthy Polanco was probably going to be a productive player. And Donovan Solano was a guy that all throughout his career, while he was never going to challenge for all-star games or MVPs or anything like that, was just a really consistent and productive hitter that could get on base. Like, that's the kind of profile you seek when you're on a limited budget. But he's 37 years old, and sometimes older players, when it's over, it's over. Like when that bat speed, when you lose a little bit of it, it's gone. And that's what it looked like it was with him for the first 6 weeks. Now, maybe he's turning it around. But the swings and misses trying to sign budget free agents have just been too striking to ignore. And so I I was a big Dipoto supporter for a long time because of some of the trades he made and some of the draft decisions he made. But his ability to build a 26-man winning roster clearly is his blind spot. Now, I don't think he's going anywhere. I was just having this discussion on Twitter today because of what's coming, right? If John Stanton comes into Jerry Dipoto's office and goes, God dang it, this team should be better than they are, it'd be really easy for Dipoto to say, yeah, you're probably right, but look what's coming, man. Look at all the bats that are coming. Just hang in there with us for another year or two, and you're going to see that flood of hitters come up, and then we're going to have a really dynamic, cheap lineup anchored by Cal and Julio, who you're paying big money to. Randy's getting so money, JP, and then all these young guys are going to come up, right? Is that going to be good enough? I don't know. But I do know this as well. If you flip that over and look at the other side of it, if you fire Jerry Dipoto and Justin Hollander tomorrow, someone could come in and look like a freaking hero. Because, I mean, it would be the most appealing job in baseball, despite the fact that John Stanton has a reputation of being a penny pincher. Because the GM's going to look at that minor league system, and they're about to add the third pick in the draft to it as well, and go, holy smokes. Usually when GMs are fired, it's all ruined. Major league roster isn't good enough, and the farm system stinks. Not the case here. They'd be beating down the door to get that GM job. I just don't think it's going to be available. I think they're going to ride this one out. So it does kind of lend itself to the question, though, and I've tossed around the idea of doing a show on this topic. In fact, Casey McLean and I were going to do it together a couple of weeks ago, and then something came up last minute. I had to reschedule. So maybe I'll have Casey on to do it again. But the idea of who has the brighter future? If you look 3 years from now, let's say 2 years from now, 2027, 2028, who has the brighter future, the Seahawks or the Mariners? It's a harder argument, I think, than you might think. Because, man, the Mariners have some talent coming along. And if they can just keep a couple of their guys, right? If they can get Logan Gilbert signed long-term, which I think they will, Kirby would be great. I don't know that he's going to be willing to, but you have other guys on the way, right? You have Durangelo Sanger, you have Ryan Sloan, you have Logan Evans. There's a lot to be optimistic about in the future. It's just really frustrating because you get tired of thinking about and talking about the future. And this team feels like it should be performing better than it is. They just can't sync things up. When they pitch well, they don't score runs. When they score runs, sometimes the pitching doesn't match it up. They lose again today in the 10th inning. That was a tough one because Brian Wu pitched really, really well. All right. Okay. We've got someone in the comments. All right. Just going to ignore that for now. Ooh, here's a fun one. Kick up 8610. Talking about Taco Bell. I don't know who talked about Taco Bell. Did I? Oh, yeah. Doug Zilla mentioned it. What's your favorite Bell item, Dan? It's a good question. Oh, it's tough. It comes down to two for me. I'm a big fan of Nachos Bel Grande, to the point that whatever I ever order from Taco Bell, I'm like, yeah, throw a Nachos Bel Grande in there too. I don't know. It's just kind of the perfect combination of crappy nacho toppings. I love it. And then have you ever tried the hack of just ordering everything on the side? And it's basically like you get like a 5-layer dip out of it. But I think just edging it out, I got to go with the Crunchwrap Supreme. In part because, I mean, every bite is kind of perfect. You get a little bit of everything. But also, it might be the best fast food driving item that's on the market. It's all in just a single package. It doesn't spill as much. It's for that reason alone, I think I'd have to go with the Crunchwrap Supreme. And by the way, have you ever tried the breakfast one? Ooh, that's kind of next level. Let's see. Oh, see, Holy Hand Grenade says, I like them Nacho Fries. I don't. However, I will say this. I've only had them. No, that's not true. I was going to say I've only had them DoorDashed. We got them fresh about a month ago on one of our road trips, and they weren't crispy. I'm like my fiance likes wimpy fries. I like them crispy. I can see the flavor profile would be good if they were crispy, but I've never gotten them that way. And so I'm not a fan. Like I go to dip them in that cheese sauce they give you with it, and it just goes bleh, and it doesn't grab any of the cheese sauce. Like, that's not okay when it comes. I'm a stickler for my crappy food. Yeah, DeWitt says, love the football talk, but this Mariners loss had me in my feels. They all do, don't they? By the way, do y'all know that I also launched another channel called Mariners Forever? It's kind of the beginning of what I think one day might be the Forever Network. Michael Thompson, who used to write for Soto Mojo, is on there with me. We're like 5-6 episodes in. We do one show a week for now. I'm really proud of it. I'm really excited to be able to talk some Mariners, but no one's watching it yet. We only have like 75 subscribers and our shows are only getting like 30 or 40 views. So if you could do me a favor and hop over to Mariners Forever on YouTube and give it a subscription and check out our show. We'll be recording again on Monday night. Really appreciate it. Let's see. John says he thinks Sam could be a top 5 quarterback, just needs the offensive line to improve and give him better protection. Yeah, I think that's a great point. I talked about this with Bill Alvstad this morning. I think Sam has been unfairly blamed for what happened with the Vikings the last 2 games of the year, the week 17 against the Lions and then the playoff game against the Rams. The Rams game especially was a complete and total team failure. Like nothing worked. And they were going up against a buzzsaw. That Rams defense by the end of the year with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse and Byron Young and all those guys, like they were causing issues for everybody. And there's a reason that the Vikings, shortly after that game, once they got in the offseason, kicked all 3 of their interior offensive linemen to the curb and swapped them out for new ones and brought in Ryan Kelly and brought in Will Fries and were willing to go 5 years without even looking at a physical. And then they drafted some guys. There's a reason for that. It wasn't just all on Sam. I thought he was unfairly blamed for those last 2 games. And the fact that people would then throw away the 15 games or the 16 games before that and go, well, see, told you, he wasn't very good. I think that's unfair. I get it. It's human nature, recency bias. People do that a lot. But yeah, I agree. I think top 5 is rich because who are your top 5? You're talking Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow. And then the 5th one's always kind of up for, like for me, it's Herbert. But like you think he's going to crack the hat? Jaden Daniels, right? Like that's Jalen Hurts. That's tough. I think top 10 is achievable. But it doesn't really matter where you rank a guy. Like I believe he can be a very, very good quarterback. And look, as much as I'm excited by the potential and the traits that Jalen Milroe brings, and I do think, as I said, his ceiling, if everything hits right, if he fulfills his potential, he's a franchise quarterback. But we know what the hit rate is on quarterbacks. He wouldn't be the first potential franchise quarterback to not achieve that. The best thing that could happen to the Seahawks is Sam Darnold taking the next step and establishing himself as a very, very good long-term starter. So good that the Seahawks, in 2 years, or maybe even next year, if he's good enough in 2025, we might be talking about a contract extension the next year. Now, the Seahawks typically don't do extensions until you get to the 3rd year of his deal. But in his situation, maybe they would because that cap hit's bigger next year and they might want to spread that out if he's that good. But I think that the most reasonable best case scenario is he's so good in 25 and 26 that you extend him. And then what do you do with Milroe if you think that he can be a franchise quarterback? Maybe someone offers you a 1st-round pick for him, right? Or you just keep him and he's your Taysom Hill and you use him in those ways and whatever. It's a good problem to have. I'm never going to worry about having more than one good quarterback. But I do agree with you. I think this system, this scheme, how they're building the offensive line and how much better it's going to be once these guys get a chance to play together. I think this scheme is set up to get the best out of Sam Darnold. I really do. You folks are nuts, says, I hope he lights it up. I agree. Nope. So I kind of took this answer away already. The gaming Cambalum. Love the show, Dan. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Do you think if Sam impresses with the team, it could lessen the likelihood of Jalen Milroe becoming our future franchise QB? I almost want him to have an identical season. Yeah. I guess I did just answer that. But again, it's a good problem to have. And if you get to that point where Milroe is just killing it in the preseason and Darnold establishes himself and gets an extension, maybe you can turn him into some significant draft capital. That doesn't happen as much in the NFL anymore, it seems. But remember all those years and this is where John Schneider cut his teeth and learned it, with Ron Wolf and then Ted Thompson with the Packers. And they kept drafting quarterbacks, even though they always had franchise quarterbacks. And then they would turn them into draft capital. And they never got a first, but it'd be fun to go back and look at all the picks that they accumulated for trading Mark Brunell, Aaron Brooks, Matt Hasselbeck, which, if I remember right, was a first-round pick swap, wasn't it? I think there was a seventh involved or something like that as well. It'd be interesting to go back and look at that. Even, did Ty Detmer bring back a pick? He might not have. Yeah. Oh, see, someone knew what I was talking about. Said, love Grazies. Let's see. Myron says, going through a thunderstorm right now. We're not getting hit with one, but I could see it. On the way home from the gym, I could see in the distance. You can see all of it's kind of the telltale sign of a thunderstorm, right? The dark clouds, obviously, but then the big kind of thunderheads, and they almost look like bomb explosions, right? In the distance, you're like, okay, someone's getting hammered with thunderstorms right now. Pop says, congrats on your success. Thank you. I appreciate it. Still feel like I'm just getting started. And really, I don't think I'll consider myself a success at this until it's fully self-sustaining. Like, hopefully, if things go well enough this year, especially if I get credentialed, and that should help visibility and exposure and help to build up the subscription base even more, to where when things slow down, endorsements go away in the off season. I don't have that extra revenue that I do during the season. When I can get to where May, June, July, I don't have to stress. Maybe I can take a little time off. That's when I'll consider it a success. But I'm proud of my growth. I like to be humble. I think I am. I don't like to hurt myself, patting myself on the back. But when you look at, basically 2 full years is how long this particular show, this channel has been in existence. To get to 10K subscribers, to give myself a little bit of credit, I don't think any of the other major creators that do Seahawks stuff have gained that many subscribers in 2 years. And I check sometimes. And also YouTube has some analytics that run in the background that tell me this stuff. But like, you guys watch my videos and give me view counts on some of my videos, even during the last couple months, during the quote unquote off season, that are honestly higher than some of the other bigger channels that have twice as many subscribers. And that's something I'm really proud of. And that's all because of you guys. I was looking at my analytics today, and it tells me like what part of the country people watch from, the age group, gender, all that kind of stuff. Shout out to the 3.5% of you that are women that watch this channel. Not sure what I have to do to appeal more to women, but that's definitely not a big part of my demographic here. But it really does speak to the fact that I've been able to build the right audience. And what I mean by that is I always had a vision when I started doing a podcast in 2018, let alone when I created this channel, to just be myself, be genuine, and be true to myself. And that is, I try to be objective. I try to be rational and reasonable. I try to combine like my journalistic eye with my passion as a fan, and try not to let one override the other too much, but blend that and be balanced. It's why I think the first 2 words on the bio for this channel are thoughtful analysis. And because I hate what ESPN's become. I hate what sports television has become. I don't watch any of it. I can't do the screamy stuff. It's contrived. It's fake. It's bullshit. Those people don't really believe what they're pounding the table and screaming about. They just pick a side because that's obviously entertainment that people want to watch, because they do. The views are there. So everyone complains about it, but you're also secretly watching, a bunch of you are. I can't do it, and I won't be that way. And I see other channels that on YouTube that try to do that, and the clickbait stuff and the salacious headline. And then you go to watch the video and the video doesn't fulfill the promise made in the headline. I'll never do that. And so I think on some level, I'm sacrificing potential growth, because if I did give into some of that stuff, maybe I could grow faster and make more money doing it in the short term. But you know what comes along with that is the wrong viewers and more negativity and more troll behavior and stuff like that. I get virtually none of that on this channel, and I'm really proud of that. And again, thank you all for not being that, because it makes me want to do stuff like this more often and do lives, because I know that I really want to engage with you guys, and I want to hear what you have to say and interact with you. So kudos to you. Here, let me do this. I don't use this enough. Yeah. Because that's a lot better. Here, I gotta get my money's worth out of this mixer that I've had for 4 years. This, much better than this. Which would just make me feel like this. Okay, enough of that. One thing that I am, that I haven't, promise I haven't fulfilled. I think last year, probably around this time, I asked you guys on Twitter if you'd like to see this, and I got a really strong positive response. And then I never did it. But for those of you nerds, tech heads, maybe you're thinking about doing a podcast yourself, because I used to watch channels like this all the time when I was thinking about building this, is I want to produce at some point an episode where I kind of take you behind the camera, behind the curtain, the green screen, whatever, and show you my workflow and show you my equipment, my setup and everything else, and show you kind of start to finish how I produce an episode and everything that goes into it. So that'll obviously take some time. That'll be a thing that I'll wait until after the move, because I'm going to be packing things up here in a few weeks. But keep an eye out for that if that's something that you're into. Pop says, what made you want to start doing YouTube and go all in and doing it full time? So there's two separate answers to that, because there's kind of two parts of the question. The YouTube thing. So when I first started podcasting in 2018 with the Dan Cave, if any of you ever listened to the Dan Cave, let me know in the comments, because I remember during COVID, there were a couple episodes that got 200 downloads, and I thought, wow, that's crazy. I never thought I'd get 200. It's still on Apple Podcasts, though, by the way, and I would talk about Mariners and Seahawks and Cougs sometimes, whatever, but mostly Seahawks. Well, then a couple things happened. I got a really nice piece of good fortune in, I believe it was 2022. Wait a minute, let me go. 24, 23. Because I think I launched this in February of 22, so it might have been 2021. I was doing my thing. At that point, I had changed the name of the Dan Cave podcast to the Emerald City Sportscast, because there was a national network that was trying to get off the ground, and they wanted to do it sort of like a radio station. It was all live and everything else. And so I rebranded the show, but that network just didn't make it. And then I was invited to take over the podcast for Field Goals. Brandon Schultz, who is on the Seahawkers pod now, he runs that with Clinton Bonner and Adam Emmert. He hosted that show for a long time, and he and I got to know each other. I'd have him on my show, and he would have me on the Field Goals podcast. And then he decided to step away from that and concentrate full-time on the Seahawkers pod. And so he reached out to me. He's like, would you like to do this? And then he recommended me to Mookie, and they gave me the gig. And then that was, if any of you ever listened to that, Dana O'Gorman was also my co-host. I would do 2 shows a week. She would do one, and then we would cross over. And that's how Dana and I got to know each other. And so that was great. If any of you have seen her on this show, you can see how easy the chemistry is with the two of us. And it was probably because we hosted a show together for that whole year. And then something happened that really ended up being a stroke of good fortune in my favor. Vox Media, who owned all of the SB Nation websites and still does, decided to get rid of podcasts for some reason. Made no sense to me. To get rid of something that you had zero production cost associated with it, because we were all doing the production, but yet you got to sell ad space and get revenue from it, made no sense. But what they did at the time is, since I was a primary host, they gave me the option of taking the feed with me. What that means is, this was only audio at the time. We didn't do YouTube. The feed is the RSS feed is basically a web address. And so it allowed me to take that feed and rebrand the show. And so there were about 3,000 subscribers on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for Field Goals Podcast. So immediately I got to start Seahawks Forever with 3,000 audio subscribers. Immediately I decided I was also going to start doing YouTube at the same time. And back then I did all the shows live, like I'm doing now. And then I learned how to, there's a benefit to doing some lives, but there's a benefit to doing pre-produced video episodes as well. That allowed me to get some traction and get some visibility and build subscribers pretty quickly. You have to get to 1,000 subscribers to be able to monetize your YouTube page. And I was able to get there within 2 months. And that was really the first moment where I thought, wait a minute, this could be a fun little side gig. Now, the second part of your question, to do it full time, it's something that started to become a pretty realistic goal, I'd say about a year ago, but more in the context of like, that could be my retirement plan. Like, I'm not getting any younger. I don't have a nest egg set aside. Like, I don't have a 401k. Like, that's something I could do when I'm 70 years old, as long as I'm still able to talk. So I was like, that'd be cool. Just a little side thing. But then over the last year, the growth made me think there's more to it than that, because then I was asked to join the Blue Wire network, and that added another revenue stream. And then I got the Bet US deal last year and during the season, and that helped. I was like, okay, this is more significant than I thought it was going to be. So YouTube really was the game changer for me. If I had just kept doing audio, it would not be this. And this is a lot more fun. I like the video editing part of it. I like building graphics. I like showing things visually, because I really enjoyed that part of being in television back in the day. I liked I was in small markets, so I shot a lot of my own stuff and edited it all myself, and really felt like I was good at it back then. I've had to learn things differently. It's not the same as it used to be. It's not 3/4 inch tape. It's not Betamax. It's not a physical editing suite, right? Where I have 2 decks and I'm working a mixing board between them. But it's similar concepts. And so I enjoy that part of it. Thanks for the question. Let's see. I have questions to ask you guys, and I haven't even had a chance to get to them because you guys are throwing so many at me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate this, Dogzilla. I think you're a member on here. And again, for those of you who you're maxed out, I get it. The streaming thing has gotten ridiculous. How stupid is it that 5-6 years ago, we were all talking about cutting the cord, cutting the cable to save money. But nowadays, if you want to watch everything that you like, it costs more to have all the streamers than it used to just have like Comcast, right? And it's a lot less reliable. The picture's not as good sometimes. It freezes. You have Wi-Fi issues, whatever. I almost wonder if the pendulum's going to swing back the other direction. And I know they've done some of this, but I don't know that they've leaned hard enough into it as they should. But if Comcast or the big cable companies, I know in Arizona, it's Cox, and I don't know what it is out here. But maybe they can figure out a way where they can package the streamers into like a bundle that they can offer with cable. And so that you can actually use their product, have better reliability with the cable feed, and just know exactly what you're going to pay every month too, and get rid of some of these streamers. So I get it. Every time it's $5 here, it's $6 there, it's $8 there. you can support my channel for free. Here are the key factors that go into the YouTube algorithm. And if you've heard that term, it's really what drives the traffic from my channel outward. Is the algorithm analyzes everything that I do, what kind of content it is, and what my analytics are, who my potential audience is, who my base audience is. And then it makes decisions on how aggressively to push out these videos and suggest them on your front page. A couple things that go into that cost you 0 pennies. Subscribe. It's free. It's huge for the algorithm. Hit that thumbs up button. It's free. It's huge for the algorithm. Engage. Leave a comment. That's huge for the algorithm. Those little things help me get more views and more subscribers, and they don't cost you a penny. So I appreciate the comment and the question. Ooh, here's a good one. Darren J, what's my favorite whiskey? So funny story, and I'll keep this short. Try to. You know how I can be. This was actually a game-changing moment in my long-time career, which is in hospitality. And 2018, I was just focusing on bartending. I'd gotten out of being a manager after 13 years as a GM, got burned out on that, didn't want to manage anymore, got tired of watching my employees work half as much as me, make twice as much, take time off, go on vacations, whatever. So I was like, I'm good at all that stuff. I'm going to go back to that. So I went back to bartending, and I was working at this little place trying to come up with a signature cocktail. It was actually the little place in Maple Valley for the owner that owns Dino's now. And it took me about 6 months to really dial this in, but I came up with this blood orange old fashioned. It was delicious. And it was made with Old Forester to begin with. And then I entered a contest that was put on by Old Forester in every major market. So I entered the Seattle version of it. It's called the Old Fashioned Face Off. And long story short, entered it and won the People's Choice Award against 8 other bartenders who were all working in downtown Seattle. Like, I was pretty intimidated. Had a little bit of imposter syndrome walking into the room that night. But there was like 150 people there, and they all had a vote, and they all tasted. We had to make samples for everybody, and I won. And like, there were some celebrities there, like Dave Valley was one of the judges. That drink, that award, that accolade got me the job, I believe, got me in the door at El Gaucho, which changed my entire career. And I worked for them for the last 6 years, and I'll still pop in and do a shift or two a week, even when I'm back in Seattle. When I can, he's willing to work around my schedule with covering the Seahawks. And so we'll still pop in there. It's my family. Love those guys. It'd be fun to do. The irony of all that is I'm not really a bourbon drinker. Like, at the time, even as a bartender, if people start, if a bourbon nerd came up and started asking me all these questions, I'd be like, let me get someone else for you. But I knew it tasted good. I consulted a lot of people. I got a lot of it, input, and came up with this drink that won a big award. But that being said, I do enjoy bourbon from time to time, and I'll even drink it on a rock, like a big rock, sometimes straight. Eagle Rare is my long-winded answer to your question. 8-year Eagle Rare. It's a Buffalo Trace distillery. It's basically Buffalo Trace aged twice as long as Buffalo Trace. I just think it's really, really smooth. It's got a little bit of sweetness to it. I don't really like harsh. That's why I don't like Scotch. I don't like, peaty. I don't like overly aged bourbon. I think it's too hot and spicy. I'm not a big Pappy Van Winkle fan, for example, because I think once you get past like the 15 year, it's just too hot. It's too much age. So to me, Eagle, and plus it's like, what, $60 a bottle? I haven't bought one in quite a while. But that would be my answer. Let's see. Oh God. Now you're speaking my language. And by the way, I hope for some reason, I don't know, I can't wait to get home. I'm getting a warning. Well, it just got better from StreamYard that said the connection was unstable, even though when I run the speed test, I'm clocking really, really good Wi-Fi speeds. So I apologize if any of you, it looks fine from my picture here, but if it's pausing or freezing for any of you out there, now I'm running the speed check and it looks like crap, which is so weird to me because it's a Saturday at 9:00 at night. So, I don't know, maybe everyone in the apartment complex right now is watching something on a streaming service. Unfortunately, if I was staying a little bit longer, the answer would be here. They're actually coming into the apartment on Wednesday to install fiber optic outlets. And for $70 a month, I could get like 2 gig fiber optic direct wired internet. This is cable internet, and I'm Ethernet wired into the router, and usually that should be plenty. But I apologize if any of you are having any issues with the picture stalling. So I am a horrible sweet tooth. It's one of the reasons I have to work out so hard to try and get back in shape, because I just love junk food and I love sweets. To me, this is an easy one. It's Oreos. Like Chips Ahoy for me are, to me, the mark of a good cookie is I shouldn't have to dip it in milk to make it good. And if you're giving me Chips Ahoy, I'm having to dip them in milk. Oreos, not so much. And I'll say this about Oreos too. When they first started coming out with all of the new experimental flavors, I was irritated. I consider myself a purist, I guess. I was like the old man on his porch yelling at the kids to get off his lawn. I was like, stop with the experimental flavors. Like the golden ones with fine. That's fine. And those are, man, I love those. Those are, I mean, don't get me wrong. I am going to dip Oreos in milk, but I don't have to. But then I just kind of relaxed on that and opened my mind, started trying some of the flavors, and man, they're fun. Like the red velvet one, the carrot cake one. They came out with a limited edition one last year that had like a maple frosting inside. Some of those alternate flavors are really, really good. So definitely Oreos over Chips Ahoy. It's a couple of questions that are inappropriate. I can't really show them. Here we go. Here's a shout out to Mothman. I keep meaning, maybe tonight will be the night. I keep meaning to like look for documentaries and stuff about that to learn more from it. Because the particular podcast we listened to, they had a lot of information, but it was 3 hosts and they were all comedians. And it was just too much sometimes. Like they spent half the time telling the story, and the other half just like making jokes and going off on tangents, which I'm the last person that should be criticizing anyone for going off on a tangent, but you know. John says, I keep hearing about how good Sam and John are doing, and Jalen are doing. How is Locke looking? There were times when Corbin was on my show right after minicamp, he said there were some days where Drew Locke looked like the best quarterback on the field. I thought it was a really inspired move for Schneider to bring him back. I think he probably benefited from the year away, being in Brian Daboll's system. Certainly he looked great in that start at the end of the year where he accounted for 5 touchdowns. It was four touchdown passes and a running touchdown. But he was playing against a team that wasn't playing all their starters, didn't have a lot to play for. It kind of reminded me of the Matt Flynn game in Green Bay that got him paid by the Seahawks. But he's such a great locker room guy. Everybody loves him. The talent's there. I love Drew Lock. I don't believe, and some people will fight me on this, I don't believe he's a long-term every game starter in the NFL. I think if you went with him as your starter, he would get exposed at certain points. But he's kind of the perfect backup because he has the perfect attitude. He's going to work his butt off. He's going to be great in the locker room. He's going to support the starter, but he can come in and win a game for you when you need him to. We saw him do that here, obviously, with the performance at the end of the game against the Eagles. So I just think, and the fact they signed him to a 2-year deal, like essentially this quarterback room is intact now for the next 2 years. And what that did is it allowed them to move forward with a development plan for Jalen Milroe with zero pressure about having to play him before he's ready. And that's the mistake that so many franchises make when they draft quarterbacks, usually higher. And usually those teams have so many problems. They need to get that guy on the field, not only to justify the pick, but just to try to give a spark because they have nothing else going for them. If they had not signed Drew Lock, they'd kept like Jaron Hall as a camp body, and they had just drafted Jalen, and we were looking at a redux of Trevon Boykin being the backup as a rookie, right? What year was that? I think there'd be a lot of conversations right now that would be placing a lot of pressure on Jalen. And then I think you would have circumstances where if he goes out and has a good preseason game, people would be thinking this is 2012 all over again. It's Russell Wilson beating out Matt Flynn and all that. So I think they've insulated themselves and Jalen from that, which is going to give them the best chance possible of developing Jalen the right way. And I'm excited about that. There's no question that Sam's the number one quarterback. There is no way that Drew Lock is going to challenge him or beat him out in the preseason, but it's a really, really good quarterback room. And I think 1 through 3, you can make an argument it's the best QB room in the league. All right. Charlie says, Mariners doing Mariner things for the last 50 years. Rogue Warrior says, I'm excited about Torrey Horton. I think he's going to be good. Agreed. I think he's going to prove to be one of the steals in this draft. I really do. I think if he hadn't had the injury last year, he's a third rounder. At worst, he might sneak into the second round. I don't think he was that far behind Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State, who I love. Like as a taller, longer receiver, he's faster than Higgins. I think that's for as much as the Seahawks have had issues historically drafting mid-round receivers, although usually haven't all the busts been fourth-round picks. I think Horton's got a chance to really be a long-term, like I could see Torrey Horton and JSN being the duo for a long time. I'm excited to see what he can do once we get to training camp and he's fully healthy and they take the training wheels off and let him go 100%. Charlie says T-Mobile Park was built on a native graveyard. Only explanation for the Mariners' luck. Or is it a curse brought on by not keeping some of your iconic, legendary Mariners, not figuring out how to keep Randy Johnson, not figuring out how to keep Junior, making him not want to leave? I don't know. We'll see. Let's talk some more baseball. First of all, John says, I want to know how Ricky White's doing. So do I, because I think he has enough upside as a route runner and a receiver and a playmaker and a yards after catch guy that he's not just going to be a special teams guy. I think he has a chance to really work into the rotation moving forward. Who do I want the Mariners to take with the third pick? I'm really pissed the way things have gone the last couple of weeks, because if you had asked me this 2 to 3 weeks ago, I would have said Cade Anderson. But then he went out and had that College World Series, and it sounds like the Angels are locked in on him because they want someone that can contribute in 26. And it was either him or Jamie Arnold or Liam Doyle. I think Arnold would have been the guy a month ago, but then he kind of had a so-so season, and Doyle finished really strong, but didn't look as good in the College World Series, and then Anderson was dominant. It sounds like it's Cade Anderson, and he's locked in. Although a little bit of glimmer of hope, I heard Joe Doyle say recently on a podcast that he has heard some reports, but he can't substantiate them, that maybe the Angels have a deal, like an underslot deal with a high schooler at 2. I don't know if that's true, but I wish it was. If Cade Anderson's there at 3, I was going to say sprint to the podium, but there isn't a podium. You just call. You just tell him right away, Cade Anderson, that's our pick. Without him, Jamie Arnold would be my second choice. I really want to add a fast-moving college arm to this farm system, because that's the one thing that we kind of lack. Like, I like Logan Evans, but he's a number 5 starter. Emerson Hancock's a number 5 starter. Durangelo Saintia is probably 2 years away, and I think he's a mid-rotation guy at best. Ryan Sloan is a potential ace legit ace. Like he's going to go down as one of the best draft picks in Mariner history if he doesn't get hurt. He's 19 years old. He's like 6'3", 240. He's built like Roger Clemens. He's already touching 99. He's dominating in single A. He might be a big leaguer by the time he's 21 years old. And I think he's got top of the rotation stuff. But outside of that, that's kind of it. We have all those hitters coming, but starting pitching is a little weak. We don't know what Bryce Miller's future is going to look like. He's kind of a smaller guy. Maybe this elbow thing is sort of a sign of things to come. Maybe he ends up getting traded. Maybe he gets transitioned to the bullpen. Luis Castillo next year, the no trade clause goes away. So he'd have a ton of value at a very reasonable number. I could really see if they went out and acquired another guy or thought that they were set there, maybe Bryce Miller bounces back and he's 100% healthy, and you go with Evans or Hancock, or you get another solid starter in free agency, whatever. I could see Castillo being traded next year and get you a nice little return. But there's a gap because Saintia is at Everett and Sloan is in Modesto, and there's nothing else. So a Jamie Arnold could be in your rotation in 2026. Out of Florida State, I firmly believe that. Cade Anderson, absolutely. Cade Anderson could break camp in your rotation in 2026, I think. And so I'd love to see that. But now it kind of feels like that's a little bit high for Arnold. Maybe the Mariners feel differently, and if they take a pitcher at 3, I'm going to trust him because they obviously know what they're doing in that area. There's a lot of speculation right now. 70% of the mock drafts have Ava Arquette out of Oregon State. Plays shortstop, 6'4", real tall. Some scouts think he can absolutely stay at shortstop, but I think the arm is so good that one other big hole in the Mariners system is third base. Maybe Colt Emerson ends up transitioning there, especially if Felton Celestine develops enough and can stick at shortstop. There's a lot of other factors that might go into that, but there isn't a legit slam dunk third baseman in the system, and Arquette would give him that. But there's some question as to whether the bat's going to translate. There's a lot of power there, but maybe the contact rates and the swing and miss are a little bit of a concern making the jump to the major leagues. And then there's the high school shortstops that they're getting a lot of buzz, and that's Jojo Parker and then Eli Willits are a couple of guys that there's some speculation because the Mariners have the biggest draft pool in baseball because they got the number 3 pick and they got a competitive balance pick at 35. They have the most money to spend on draft picks. Maybe they go under slot with a high school guy by taking him at 3 so that at 35, they can take another guy that maybe was a tough sign and end up with essentially 2 first-round talents. That's what they did last year with Saintia and Sloan, right? They go over slot to get Sloan with their second pick, and then they drafted like three or 4 guys right after that were senior signs and they could go under slot for. So, if it's not a pitcher, I'd be good with Arquette because I think he will be a fast mover and he gives them something in the organization they don't have. So Arnold or Arquette. I love Doyle's stuff. I just think long-term, he kind of looks like a reliever to me. I don't know if he has the repertoire to succeed as a starter long-term. He's such a high-effort guy. I'd hate to use the 3rd pick on a bullpen guy. And I don't want one of those high school shortstops just because look at our organization. Cole Young, Colt Emerson, Michael Arroyo, Felton Celestine. Like, they're all shortstop, second baseman. We're good there. And a guy like Willits doesn't have any power. Parker projects to a little bit more power. But if I'm going to take a high school kid at 3, I'm taking Jackson Holiday. Is it Jackson or is it Ethan? I can't keep all the names straight. The Holiday kid. At 3, just because he might project better to third base or the outfield, and he's got massive, massive power potential. So there you go. Hey, that's the kind of thing you would get on Mariners Forever if you go subscribe over there for me, if you would. I think the link is down below too, if you want to just make it really, really easy. Let's see. MWN says, love the Mariners channel. Can't wait till you're allowed to do live shows. I have to recheck what the parameters are to be able to go live. But yeah, as soon as we can, we will. We're not there yet. Let's see. What else do we have? Because then I want to throw some of my questions at you too. Let me just shoot down here. It's Ethan. Thank you. Ethan Holiday. Did I get that right on the second one? Will Dan Wilson continue being the manager in 2026? I'm not all that impressed by his instincts and decision making as a manager, especially his bullpen usage. I liked where Scott Service had gotten with the bullpen usage the last 3-4 years. He had changed his entire outlook on it. Stopped using their saving the closer for only save situations like they did with Edwin Diaz his last year, which I think in retrospect, I think they were trying to do that just to build up his trade value because they knew they were going to move him. I don't like that kind of usage. I'm much more of a modern baseball thinker and they did it the other day. So maybe this is shifting where they brought Munoz in the 8th to face the heart of the lineup. Then they brought Brash in to face the bottom of the lineup and finish off a win. That's the first time we'd seen them do that. And so there was a shift where Service started doing that. But I had assumed at the time, and I think other people did too, maybe that was coming from upstairs. Clearly not, because Wilson's doing it a different way. He's also managing the game differently, puts it in motion more often. They run more, steal more bases. I think anything less than them going completely off the rails and he's back. You know, if it just all falls apart and they win 75 games and finish 10 out of the wild card, like if it's a disaster the rest of the way, then he's probably not back. But I don't think it will be. I think they're getting healthier. I think they're going to steady the ship. Gilbert and Kirby are going to keep getting better as they go out. The bullpen's coming around. They're finding contributors. Leguimina has after a rough patch there, getting sent down, come back up. He's been better. Bizzardo has been a revelation. Vargas has been really good. And so, gosh, if they could ever get Santos back healthy or acquire a high leverage arm before the deadline, that's a really good bullpen all of a sudden. Plus Gabe Spire. I mean, looks a lot better today than it did a month ago. And the lineup, well, it's not consistent enough, right? Like they killed it in Chicago. They had a good 2 weeks, and then now they got shut out twice in a row, or not shut out twice in a row, but they got shut down the last 2 games in Minnesota. They haven't scored much in Texas. It's a little frustrating, but that lineup is much, much deeper than it has been, and they will add to it. But suddenly it looks a lot better. A month ago, Michael and I on the show were saying you need to go get 2 bats. We were talking about Ryan O'Hearn and Eugenio Suarez and adding them, and I wouldn't wave that idea off. But they might have put themselves in a position now with Rayleigh back and with Solano hitting better and some of the other guys in the lineup. Cole Young, since that 1-for-18 start, is hitting like 320. And he's starting to hit the ball with more authority now. He had a really unlucky day yesterday where he hit the ball hard 4 times, only had 1 hit to show for it. I think that lineup is getting longer and deeper, and there are fewer obvious holes in it. So maybe you just had to add one good bat and a good bullpen arm. I do think they end up making the playoffs as a wild card this year. I think that's kind of their floor. But the Astros might be a little too tough to catch. Would I sign Trevor Bauer? No. And that's a tough one. Like, do I think he was treated unfairly? Maybe. Based on the evidence of that one high-profile case? Absolutely. He was targeted. He was deceived. It was unfair. He's beat her in court already. He's suing her some more. Like, go get whatever you can. But depending on what you read and who you talk to and where you hear it from, there was a lot more going on that might be cause for concern. And he's just such a big, bold, brash personality. I think this team where they are right now feels like they're kind of steadying the ship after all the injuries and everything else. I think it'd be a bad time to add him to the roster. I do. I think that's a situation where if you're going to give Trevor Bauer a chance, you do it in spring training. Non-roster invite, right? You bring him in. No one's going to give him guaranteed money. Give him a shot to make the team. And if he's a perfect citizen and he fits into your clubhouse and you feel good about him as a teammate and he can still pitch. And that's in question too. What is he, 35, 36, 37 years old now, pitching in the Mexican League? I think that's the only circumstance where I would consider giving him a shot. Non-roster invite, spring training, give him an outside chance to make the team. But right now, no. And it is unfortunate because I'm a big believer in second chances, people learning from mistakes, all of that. But also he got screwed in that one case for sure. And that's unfortunate. That woman has obviously had some consequences, and I'm sure she would do things differently if she could go back and do it again. But it's also a cautionary tale for professional athletes too, to just be careful. MWN says, stay away from Eli Willits. He's a future J. Okay. You can have him. Again, I've heard he's a really slick fielding shortstop who, and this is exactly, his scouting report reminds me of Cole Young in that I remember when they drafted Young, DePoto said, we think he was the most accomplished, polished high school hitter in the country. Just bat to ball skills, strike zone recognition, all that. That's what I'm hearing about Eli Willits too. But there's not really any power there. Although the difference in those two is that while Young can get you out of a game at shortstop in a pinch, it sounds like Willits is legit, hands down, slick fielding shortstop. He's going to be a shortstop at the next level. So that does add some value. God, we have so much of that in our system right now. I'd rather go a different direction. Okay. Myron says his go-to is Crown Royal vanilla, ice, and a splash of Pepsi. And all that makes me think about is vanilla ice. Okay. CP Mortimer says, hey, Dan, if you haven't discussed Texas State to the Pac-12, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love it. And it's taken some heat. Like, I saw it today on Twitter, and I was responding to some people like, that's all you could get. They're like University of Texas's little brother. Nobody watches them. Nobody goes to their games, whatever. I think it makes all the sense in the world for the Pac-12 because they're banking on the upside. It's kind of like taking a player in the draft, right? You could take the guy with the high floor that might be the safer pick, or you could take Nick Emenwari and trade up for him, take him at 35 because he's got the ceiling and you're banking on that. And if he reaches his ceiling, now you have a superstar. Texas State's an ascending program, 40,000 students. They have a brand new stadium. They have a crap ton of money invested, so they're going to be able to play in the NIL world. There's enough talent in Texas to go around. I think it's an inspired choice. I am much more in favor of Texas State, than I would have been with the Memphis Tulane idea. Now, if they get to the point where they want to go 12 members and you get Memphis and Tulane to come in together, because I do think you need to have that travel partnership, I'm cool with that. But as the final member to get them over the hump and become an official conference so that they can play in 2026 as a conference, I think it's the right move. I really do. Now, I'd like to go grab UTSA as well. And then they can have travel partners and a natural rivalry. I think they're an ascending program, right? Reek Woolen's alma mater. And there's been talk of that. I'd like to go back and revisit UNLV. I think the Seahawks really sent a shot across the Mountain West Conference's bow by locking in CBS as their primary media partner, because in 2026, when that media deal starts, that's the end of CBS's deal with the Mountain West Conference. So I think they kind of undercut the Mountain West on that and really did some damage to them. And so maybe UNLV now is kind of rethinking, maybe we should have gone there. Another really interesting program to keep an eye on for the future, I don't think it would work now, is Sacramento State. That they've applied to go Division I, FCS. They've been denied, even though they meet every single parameter, stadium size, all of the stuff that you need to have to get to move up to FCS. They have. I mean, I remember back in the day when Idaho moved up to FCS, if you remember that, they had to get a waiver from the NCAA because the Kibbe Dome wasn't big enough, and they were granted that. Ultimately, they decided to move back down. I think Sacramento State would make some sense. because I've read reports that they have somehow, some way, they have a crap ton. They have a massive NIL fund that they've gotten through their donor base, and they're ready to make some noise with it. So Jackson Slater and his old alma mater would probably love to see that. But I also like the idea of leaving the doors open. There's going to be criticism when the media deal is fully announced that it's not enough money. It's like $10 million a year per member, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant right now to where they need to get to. This next 4 or 5 year period, this next media deal is more about exposure than it is about revenue. Just be seen by as many eyeballs as you can. Try to build the conference up as much as you can. Put yourself in position where 4 or 5 years from now, when there's more conference realignment, to be a player in that. So I like the Texas State edition. What do we got here? CJK04. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, Dan, congrats on going full time and very well deserved. Do you think Zach Charbonnet, should be the starting back and have K9 be the change of pace back? I believe that's a more potent attack. I get it, right? Charbonnet's a more physical back, a little bit more north-south runner. Today, as we sit here, he might be a little bit more of a natural fit for the scheme, but Walker's ceiling is so much higher. And I was just saying it on the show this morning. I think I said it on my show this week. I think there is no one player on offense outside of the quarterback, obviously, that is going to determine how good this offense could be. Or let me word that in another way. There isn't a player on this offense that can impact the ceiling of this offense more than Kenneth Walker. If we get a fully healthy season out of Kenneth Walker and he fixes his wiring, because I felt like his instincts were broken last year because of lack of trust and lack of consistency in that offensive line being able to produce the holes where they're supposed to be, that this outside zone scheme is going to make it a lot easier on him if he just gives into it and kind of learns it and resists the temptation to cut back as often as he does, because the whole way the wide zone running scheme is designed to unfold is it creates those lanes for you that he's trying to create for himself by cutting back. I think he can have a Jahmyr Gibbs type impact, catching 50, 60 balls in this offense, being the Alvin Kamara of this offense, and also running for 1,200 yards, bunch of touchdowns. I think he's the higher ceiling player, and for that reason, I want to play him. And then they'll have a decision to make next offseason, and they might very well let him walk, in which case he probably signs a decent deal somewhere. You get a 3rd or 4th round pick for him. Maybe at running back salaries today, you get a 4th. But that room is so stacked that as despite what I just said, when I look at 2026, 2027, I see Damian Martinez. Like, I like Charbonnet, but I think Martinez is a dude. And I think his ceiling's higher than Charbonnet too. So appreciate the question though. Texas State's a sleeping giant. See, CP Mortimer says it. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. Thoughts on Dylan Moore, asks Carmen. I think he needs to not be in this roster. His slump right now, I think I saw Jason Churchill tweet it today. I think he's 11 for his last 100 with like 60 strikeouts. He's not even competitive at the plate. I think he's a classic case of a guy that in small samples, kind of like my analogy to Drew Lock that I was using earlier, he can do some damage. He's legit won games for us over his career. And his versatility is valuable. You know, he can play just about any position on the field. But the swing has always been a problem. And right now, he's just not seeing the ball. I don't know if he has options left, if you could send him down, or maybe, I woke up with a sore ankle today. Like, find a reason to put him on injured reserve for 21 days or whatever. He shouldn't be playing. I'll tell you that much. I'd play Miles Masterboni 100 times out of 100 before I'd play Dylan Moore right now. Or if you could IR him, you bring maybe Leo Rivas back up. He's hurting you. He's hurting you. He's just not competitive at the plate right now. Charlie the Unicorn, Cal Raleigh, if he continues on his current hitting pace, over under 30% chance for MVP. I'd say over. I think if he continues what he's doing by the end of the year, even if Aaron Judge just continues doing what he's doing, it's a conversation because of the position he plays. full-time catcher, catching 5-6 days a week and DHing once, like playing every day, hitting from both sides of the plate, hitting home runs from both sides of the plate. And it's not just the homers. He has become an accomplished, complete hitter. Like, he used to just kind of be an all or nothing guy, right? A 210 bomb or strikeout guy. But now he's hitting singles. He's hitting doubles. He's getting on base. He's moving runners over. It's remarkable. And it's fun to see because his ascension has been just nice and steady. Every year he improves. Some people have said, well, it's the torpedo bat. Well, other guys are using the torpedo bat too, and it's not doing wonders for them. To me, if you look at his trajectory the last 4 years, it's been steady improvement. And this is everything coming together. And him just being able to see pitches, slowing the game down. It's amazing. It's not often as Mariner fans that we've got to enjoy someone signing a big contract and then actually living up to it. But man, he's not only living up to it, but how quickly did he make that contract a bargain? Like, we're going to look back on that deal a year or two from now and be like, that's the best thing Jerry Dipoto ever did right there. The JSJHF. Do you think the Seahawks could win a playoff game next year? The way your question is phrased, absolutely yes. Yes, I do. And I kind of think that's, look, I think even on my most optimistic day, and you know me, I tend to be optimistic. I think it'd be ridiculous for me to sit here and say, I think this team can go to the Super Bowl. If everything goes perfectly, of course they could. But I do think that the measuring stick this year is, can you win a playoff game? In that respect, I think it kind of would remind me of 2012, where Seahawks made the playoffs, won a playoff game, and then they went to Atlanta, should have won that game, but didn't, came up short, right? And then they walked off the field thinking, we're close. And next year, we really have a shot to contend. And if the Seahawks do that this year, they win 10 games again, 11 games, get into the playoffs, whether they win the division or not, they get in, let's say, realistic scenario, they win 10 or 11 games, they get in as a wild card. They win a playoff game. Then they get knocked out. Imagine, just think ahead to what the offseason next year will look like. What will the narrative be? We just need to nail the draft. Maybe add a solid free agent or two. 2 off seasons ago, the conversation was, or 1 off season ago, the conversation was, can Mike McDonald fix the defense? Because it was putrid in the 3 years prior. That question got answered. And now we talk about the defense, and it's all 11 starters back and 15 guys that started games last year. Like, the defense isn't a question. Like, it's going to hit the ground running, give us a chance to compete week in, week out, no matter what. And plus, I think they can be even better. Like, some of the young players on that defense haven't really reached their potential. But what's been the narrative on the offensive side of the ball? Massive changes, wholesale changes. Your franchise quarterback traded, your best receiver traded. Well, maybe not your best receiver, but your star receiver, right? More changes on the offensive line. Complete new coaching staff, new scheme, all that. Next year, that's not going to be the case. And so you think to next June, let's jump forward 12 months, and it's going to be, there's continuity on both sides of the ball. Now that's when you can start talking about, this is a team ready to take that next leap. So I think winning a playoff game would be really important as a next step. And I think it's a realistic goal for this team. I do. Let's see here. All right, let me throw some at you. This is just some of the stuff that I had. Okay, we kind of talked about that. Here's one. What's your biggest roster concern? I know what Dogzilla is going to say, so you can just save it, actually. Will the defense be top 5? Who leads the team in touchdowns? That's a fun one. Who raises the flag opening day versus San Francisco? Like, is it someone that like had a great game against the Niners at one point? But some of those guys have already raised the flag. Like Cam Chancellor's already raised the flag, right? Has Sherman ever raised the flag? I don't think he has he? Do you think he would do that? Do you think he would agree to do it? Or if he would pass out of respect for the time he spent with the 49ers? I don't think I could pull it up, but I'll do that later. Which road game do you think would be the best trip to make? It's kind of a fun one. And then I get into some food stuff, right? I'm going to be really hungry when this is done. Best chip, best cracker, best dessert. What would your last meal be? And then here's another one that I thought was fun. Best movie in the last 5 years. I know movies as a whole, like Hollywood just is crumbling. Just the quality just isn't there lately. But there's been a few. I've got one in mind, head and shoulders above everything else, but be curious to hear some of your takes on that. Let's see. Nose tackle, right guard. I disagree with right guard. We're going to find our right guard this season. And I think it's going to be Christian Haynes. Now, you could be right. But they have so much invested. You guys realize it. We've drafted more offensive linemen the last 3 years than any team in football. If Haynes doesn't make it, and again, I think if you ran Haynes out there and he's healthy for 17 games, he's not going to be unplayable. He's not going to be a disaster. I think his floor is, he's okay, but we can find someone better, if that makes sense. But they're so high on Bryce Cable-Dew, and he's such an athlete and such a perfect fit for the scheme that I think if Haynes doesn't play well enough to where he's the guaranteed starter in 2026, that they might think Cable-Dew is. That being said, you never know. I think right tackle might be a more likely big need if they just don't trust Abe Lucas's long-term prognosis with the knee enough to give him an extension. And there's other guys that they might think Mason Richmond's the guy there. They might think Michael Jarrell is the guy there. But I think one of the things I'm excited about is, and leads me to believe this offensive line's finally going to get fixed long-term, is they have so many bodies, young, talented players spread out. There's going to be offensive linemen the Seahawks cut this year on the cut to 53 that are going to get claimed by other teams. Mark that down, write it down, come back to me. Yeah, I'll probably think I'm crazy, but it's going to happen. There's talent there. It just hasn't been coached up right, and it hasn't been given a chance to be cohesive yet. But nose tackle, absolutely. I think they really need to find, and it doesn't have to be that old school 350-pounder. It doesn't have to be Haloti Ngata. I had hoped that Cam Young would be that guy, 320 pounds, dog mentality, really good in the run game with just a little bit of juice as a pass rusher. He just couldn't stay healthy. I had hoped they would get one out of this year's draft because it was an unusually good draft for 320-pound plus nose tackles. But I do think next year it'll be one of those years that the glaring needs are going to be so few that it'll free you up to either pay a guy a little bit in free agency, not that nose tackles ever cost that much money anyway, or draft a guy. I think edge rusher could be another pretty significant need next year. DeMarcus Lawrence, as much as I love him, and I think he's going to be a huge part of this roster this year, he's 32 years old. He's only on a 2-year deal. I think technically it's a 3, but really it's a 2-year deal. Nwosu probably isn't going to be on the roster in 2026, not at that cap hit. Maffe's in the last year of his deal. And if he plays really well, he's probably going to price himself out of what they want to pay. And if he doesn't, maybe they bring him back. If it's a reasonable extension, it's team friendly, but they might just let him walk. And then you have Derek Hall, Jared Ivey might make the team. Like, you have some youth there, but it's not dynamic. So I think, and plus edge is always, you want to take premium positions in the first round. typically, unless you have a glaring need like we did this year at interior offensive line. But I think sometimes interior defensive line or offensive tackle or edge are guys that are worth taking a first round pick on. And I think at this point, as you look ahead to next year's draft, those are some pretty strong classes as well. JSN will have the most touchdowns. I think it's going to be a running back. I think when we get into the red zone, we're going to run the football pretty heavily and much more effectively. I could see Walker having 10, 11 touchdowns. I could see Charbonnet having a, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Who's the kid that started out in Green Bay, went to Detroit for a year and had the huge year, vulturing touchdowns. And then he went to New Orleans. I don't want to look it up. I want to try and remember it. Any of you know the guy I'm talking about? He was a huge fantasy football star 2 years ago because he had like 16 touchdowns, even though he only basically got carries inside the red zone. I could see a year like that for Charbonnet. But JSN's he's going to catch 100 balls again. So, and when you go back and watch, if you remember here and you watch the red zone touchdowns that Darnold threw last year for the Vikings, 26 of his 35 touchdown passes were in the red zone last year. A lot of them were like inside the 5. He does really well in that circumstance. He gets the ball out really quick and spreads it around a lot. It wasn't just always trying to force the ball into Justin Jefferson. It was Addison. It was Naylor. It was the tight ends. I really look forward to seeing what Darnold does in the red zone this year. Charlie asks, how do you carry 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster? The running back, tight end, and fullback depth makes the numbers really tricky. It does. It'll look different than it has in years past. The Seahawks have almost always opened the season with their 53-man roster with 6 wide receivers. A lot of times that's because the 6th guy is like a special teams demon or he returns kicks or whatever. That's not going to happen this year. You're going to have to steal it from somewhere. Now, you can borrow from the offensive line because last year they kept 11. That was one more than they had kept in the couple of years previous to that. And the reason they kept so many last year is because they wanted to protect those young guys. They didn't want to risk losing a LeMaya or a Jarrell, certainly a Haynes. They weren't going to waive him anyway, but they didn't want to risk losing those guys or a Jalen Sundell. They wanted to protect them. And so they knew they'd be taking a hit and it would take from other spots. And so if you look at last year's roster, you might not really see the opportunity because don't assume they're going to keep 11 offensive linemen again. I don't think they will. I think that's one of the reasons why they've drafted guys and cross-trained them. You have Christian Haynes taking center snaps now. Maybe that frees him up to trade, for example, hypothetically, trade in Olu Oluwatimi if Sundell takes that job because Haynes and Zabel even can play center. Josh Jones can play both tackles. Michael Jarrell, this surprised me. They started playing him at left tackle this year in OTAs on the second team, so he can play both ends. Mason Richmond was a left tackle for 4 years at Iowa. They have him playing right tackle. He can play both sides. They've cross-trained all their guards at right and left guard. So I think if you have that kind of versatility, you can carry 10 instead of 11. So there's one spot right there. I think the tight end thing is interesting too, even though they signed the dude from San Francisco that I can never remember his name, Schaubert, right? Is it Eric Schaubert? He's a role player, low veteran minimum money, basically. I think he's a long shot to make the roster. But if you assume Fant, Arroyo, and Barner, well, as much as Kubiak likes to play 12 and 13 personnel, you want 4 guys that can play tight end on the roster. So Robbie Oots is your fullback, but he played tight end at Alabama. And so maybe he basically fills the role of 4th tight end and you only have to carry 3 on the roster. Okay. Running back's another one. Like Kubiak likes to use 2 backs at times. So does that mean he might keep a 4th? Probably not because of the fullback. So you're keeping a 3rd and you're hoping you can get one of those guys through to the practice squad. The other place that you can, and then you can borrow from wide receiver. You probably keep 5 on the 53 instead of 6. But you could also make a case that you can borrow 1 spot from the defense as well because it's so experienced. It's so cohesive. It's been together now for a full year. And so many of those guys are cross-trained and can do more than one thing, right? You don't have to keep a 4th inside linebacker, for example, to go along with Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, and Drake. Oh my gosh. How am I forgetting Drake Thomas? Drake Thomas's name. Incidentally, the video I did when he was signed about how much I liked that move, poaching him off the Raiders practice squad when they tried to sneak him through, still to this day, the most watched video I've ever produced. Has like 30,000 views at this point. Anyway, you don't have to keep a fourth. You don't have to keep a Patrick O'Connell or a Derek Jackson, because Nick Emenwari mostly was working at what is essentially a weak side linebacker role in OTAs, according to Greg Bell here on the show. You can play other guys. Julian Love can basically play a de facto kind of weak side linebacker role in nickel and dime packages, things like that. So, in dime packages, you take the second linebacker off the field. So that's a place they can borrow from. Corner/safety, you can maybe go one less there and keep some guys on the practice squad because they have so many guys that can play different positions. So that's a way to think about it too. But absolutely, they'll figure it out, and they probably already have a plan in mind when they decided to take Jalen Milroe, because they're certainly committed to keeping three. Somebody suggested to me the other day that no, you just move Milroe to the practice squad. No, he gets claimed. He 100% gets claimed, and someone keeps him on a 53 if you try to do that. So Sherman would be a great one. I just don't know. All right, let me look it up. Has he ever raised... Here we go. Bear with me. This isn't going to be the most scintillating. Oh, yeah. Cam just did it last year. Yeah, I don't think... is that the only year they're going to show us? Okay. Yep, Sherman hasn't done it yet. I think it'd be a great one. I was going to say Ricky Waters too, but he probably wouldn't because he was primarily a 49er. Hey, if he'd be willing to do it, I think it'd be great. I think his relationship is good with the organization. We saw pictures of him at OTAs a few weeks ago, laughing it up with John Schneider, even though he's critical. He just 2 weeks before we saw those pictures, he was critical of Schneider on his podcast. He's just honest like that. But yeah, that one would be pretty darn cool. Might piss off his 49er friends, but it would make the most sense. That would be fun. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay. X-Wing says cracker, Ritz toasted chips. I have tried a couple of those. Those are pretty good. Sour cream and onion. Okay. I'm in the same neighborhood as those. Ritz are an all-time great. They're a Mount Rushmore cracker. My favorite cracker is chicken and a biscuit. I think it's also the most underrated, underappreciated cracker out there. Delicious. Don't even need to put cheese or anything on it. I can just eat a whole box. And now they came out last year with a ranch-flavored chicken and a biscuit. My goodness. But Ritz is probably my second favorite. It's right there. It's so versatile. Cheese on Ritz crackers, sharp cheddar cheese is a go-to snack for me. I actually have a box of Ritz crackers in my cupboard right now that I might just eat after the show. They're I like some of the new varieties they've come out with. This one's the everything, delicious. I tried the hot honey ones last week. It was a little fakey on the flavor for me. And then I'm a sucker for those little cheddar mini Ritz sandwiches. Yeah, those are pretty bomb. But for chips, you might think this is boring. Wavy Lay's. Best chip on the planet, in my opinion, Wavy Lay's. Best flavor and the best dipping chip. And then, we can have a conversation about best dips, but there aren't that many bad ones out there. Let's see. I don't know how to do this. Can you change the chat names back to showing the actual names and not the handles? How do I do that? Someone will have to tell me. Let's see. Guests. No. I don't know. You'll have to tell me how to do that because I don't know where that setting is. Oh, here we go. Best movie in the last 5 years. Godzilla -1, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Haven't seen either of those. I'm gonna have to check them out. I heard that the Godzilla movie was really great, which kind of blows my mind because like I'm old enough that I grew up watching the original Godzilla movies. All-time favorite movie. Here's a vote for Fifth Element. Jamal Williams. That's it. That's the name I was looking for. Thank you, Yunkt. Appreciate that. Yep. Couple of the rest of you got in there with that too. Ooh, Charlie the Unicorn says, let's have a Make-A-Wish kid hoist the 12th man flag. They've never done that. That would be an awesome wish for some kid to make. That would be really, really great. Oh, okay. Here, Charlie says YouTube had an update. So each of you have to go in and change your own name back. So check your settings on your profile in YouTube and see how that looks, or Google it, or ask ChatGPT or something like that. Yeah, here it is. X-Wing says the YouTube change. Okay. I'll send something out to the community too. And I'll look into that myself, because that is a little harder to read. It's just not as fun. Right. So my favorite movie in the last 5 years, hands down, is Top Gun Maverick. I liked it so much. I saw it on Memorial Day, the year it came out, and then went and saw it a week later, like in the theater. I wanted to experience it there, and then I've watched it at home since then too. It was so well done. I thought that was going to be such a high bar. Just generally, sequels don't measure up, and then especially when so much time has gone by. But man, they nailed it. Like if I could only watch one of the two movies, I'd watch the second one. So good. And then just little nuggets and Easter eggs too, like knowing that scene where they fly down by the water and the wings and the jet stream kicks up the water, that's Lake Cachis on the Snoqualmie Pass. So cool. I've camped there. And now they've announced they're going to do a third one. They already have a script. It sounds like it's going to be really intriguing. It's going to be the final, piece of the trilogy that Maverick is going to face like an existential crisis in this movie. And then the coolest thing, and I cannot wait. In fact, my lady is in Seattle visiting her daughters this weekend. So I've got some free time. I'm going to go watch that F1 movie. I've heard nothing but great things about it. It's the same writer or director that did Maverick. And so it's all practical effects. Like all the driving scenes are in real cars. It's no CGI. It's no green screen stuff. And they're actually legitimately talking about trying to write a script where they bring Cole Trickle from Days of Thunder, Tom Cruise's character, and Brad Pitt. They'd be about the same age range with the way the stories line up. And that, they have some history and somehow they get back together. And that would just blow my mind. Like they need to take advantage of that before those two guys get too old for it to make sense. That would be one of the great sequel ideas I think ever made. We've seen horror movies and superhero movies bring main characters together, but I don't know that we've ever seen like two franchises like that do it. That'd be like bringing, they should do more of that. Like, I know I don't want to spoil it, but like, they should put John Wick together with like, the Transporter, right? Like his character, or, maybe give me some other ideas, but they should do more of that, because Hollywood's obviously done with original ideas and smaller movies. And the only thing that they'll green light anymore is stuff that they just think is going to have one big opening weekend, which is part of the problem with the quality that we're seeing. Let's see. Who's my favorite player of all time? Can you see it? I can't move my arm. He's upside down. That guy right there. Number 80. There. That's not bad. It's Largent. It's followed closely by 10 other guys. Like I loved Zorn growing up too, but I was a big Hasselbeck guy. I was always, I guess I have an affinity for quarterbacks, played quarterback when I was younger. But, and then, I can't even pick a favorite player from like 2010 on. Probably Marshawn, who's on the other side of the forearm there. I don't know why. Why would the green screen, why would my arm be picking up? That's weird. Anyway, I think 2 hours is pretty solid, you guys. That was so much fun. I really appreciate it for, all the diehard loyal viewers that are in here. This is kind of what I was hoping for tonight is, topics are a little more challenging to come up with this time of year. I'm pretty proud of some of the ones I've thought of. I have some cool ideas coming up over the next couple of weeks before I leave and head back to training camp. But you have to get a little more creative. And I really wanted this offseason to try and stay away from the evergreen stuff. And I've done this in the past, both as a writer and a podcaster, 5 best quarterbacks ever to play for the 5 best. Some of that was taken care of for me because the Seahawks do in their top 50, and I kind of piggybacked off of that. I did the Mount Rushmore one, but just trying to keep things a little bit more creative. So tomorrow, actually, let me see. Let me look at my notes here. Join me again. I'm doing another live show tomorrow, and it'll be with my good friend Bryce Coots of the Hawks Rundown and regular contributor to this show. We are, what do we decide on here? Here we go. Hold on. Son of a gun. I'm looking at my own text messages and I can't find. Camp battles no one is talking about, right? So that'll get into a conversation about bubble guys and guys with an uphill battle but camp battles that aren't getting enough attention. And then bold predictions, training camp bold predictions. So Bryce and I are both going to be doing that tomorrow night. So I look forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. And then I've got one that I'm working on, and I know I teased this a week ago, but had some other things come up. Was able to put some fun guests together last week, which, by the way, if you haven't watched the last couple of shows, and I know it's summertime and y'all have stuff going on, you're busier, really enjoyed the interview that I did with Robert Mays, first of all, at the beginning of the week from the Athletic Football Show, like someone that I have as much respect for as anyone in the business. That was a really great conversation. Really loved picking his brain. He's so smart. And then Christopher Kidd, that was a lot of fun. First time having him on the show, co-host with Michael Sean Dugar on the Seahawks Man to Man pod. He's also on KJR radio Monday through Friday. So that was fun too. If you haven't watched those shows, go back and check them out. And then hop in tomorrow for the live show. That'll be a lot of fun. And then moving forward, everything will remain on a full-time schedule up until the 16th. That's when we hit the road. We pull into Seattle on the 19th. I'll probably have all my stuff set up and be ready to do a show. So from the 16th to the 20th, there won't be any content next month, but then I'll make sure and hop back on the 20th, and then training camp starts on the 23rd, and I'll be there and I'll be able to show you video. I'm super excited about using my camera, my better camera, and just being up close and being able to tell you guys what I see instead of having to pick someone else's brain. And then, like I said, hopefully it becomes a full-time gig. Really, really excited about that. Oh, here we go. Just saw F1 last night. So good. I am going to, I think that's the plan. What day is it? It's Saturday? Okay. Live show with Bryce tomorrow. I think I'm going to go do that Monday. Nope, can't do it Monday. We're recording a Mariners Forever podcast with Michael. Maybe I'll see a matinee. Because then Tuesday night I got to go pick up the lady. So anyway, until next time, let's do this the right way, shall we? Here we go. And I've got some new music picked out too, so I'll be refreshing all of that in the mixer so we can start mixing that up. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. All the ways that you can support the show are listed and linked down below in the description, including the link to the Mariners Forever podcast channel. So please subscribe over there if you would. We'll have a new show out on Monday, Michael Thompson and I. Thanks again, you guys. This was awesome. I thought this would only go an hour. We went 2:15. So thanks to you for all you do and all the support on the channel. Until tomorrow or whenever else you can watch again, forever and always, go Hawks. I'm Dan. Thanks for watching.